The Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association presents Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Eldorado Scioto Downs, now racing Tuesday through Saturday, post time 5:45. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standard-bred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. By Prolific Equine, managing stallions and mares to create champions. By the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center, caring down to a science. And by Wire-to-Wire Wealth, strategies tailored to your needs.
Welcome to another edition of Freshman Focus.
Today we're visiting Chris Beaver at his home farm track in Radnor, Ohio. We're going to be talking about 10 of his up-and-coming Ohio breds.
And after this message, we'll sit down and talk with Chris Beaver.
At Ohio State's Galbraith Equine Center, our veterinary champions are here for your champions 24/7, 365 days a year. Our expert team of boarded surgeons, sports medicine and rehabilitation specialists, together with veterinary cardiologists, internal medicine, and ophthalmologists, make our hospital your best resource for all sport horse performance issues. The Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center's Galbraith Equine Hospital. Call us today at 614-292-6661.
Captain Kirk is standing his second year in 2025 here in the state of Ohio, and he's attracting some of the best brood mares in the entire industry. You want to breed to a stallion that can step your mare up. And if you're breeding to sell those foals, you have to breed to the stallion that the biggest bidders will pay a premium to acquire. Captain Kirk stands at Winterwood Farm, and his introductory stud fee of only $3,000 ends after the 2025 season. So book your mare today. Write down this website. Go to CaptainKirkInfo.com to get all the details right now.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus. We're with Chris Beaver. And Chris, what kind of a year did you have last year?
It wasn't my best, but it was decent, you know. Some of my 2-year-olds came on good, and I had some 3-year-olds that are coming in to be nice older horses too. So it was okay.
I see since you've come back from down in Florida, you've gone to the winter circle a few times already.
Yeah, it looks like I've got some good 3-year-old trotting fillies. They were first and second in the Hackett, and you know, so that was a nice surprise. Neither one of them was a top sire stake filly last year, but they raced well in the Constellation. Yeah,
you know what's a kind of a rare statistic for Chris Beaver? In your entire career, started training, I think, somewhere around 1990 or somewhere in that vicinity. At least that's when they started keeping records. 3 years, 2017, 2018, and 2021. 3 years, you had exactly the same number of wins. 141 wins.
Yeah, I think that's been one thing about we've been pretty consistent. You know, we had a few years of growth, but you know, maybe the last 5 years, you know, we always averaged pretty close to $3 million in earnings.
Lifetime, it's $34.6 million for you as a trainer. What horse of all the ones you've trained would you put as number one?
Well, my favorite was the first good horse I trained was named Raging Samantha. And she kind of put me on the map, got me started, made me money to invest in the business. She was the top age trotting mare as a 4-year-old, and I ended up selling her to people in Sweden for $500,000 after a 4-year-old year.
I think that's the one that you decided to be a full-time trainer with, and to heck with the vet school. Right.
That's exactly it. I was applying to vet schools, and Samantha came along, and I thought, well, let's just stick with this.
You've had a great career over the time. This year, looking at the 10 we're featuring today, how many 2-year-olds do you have, though?
I have about 28, something like that, yeah.
Now, are a number of those dual eligible, Kentucky and Ohio?
I have a few Ohio breds that are dual eligible, but I also have 7 or 8 that are Kentucky eligible or Kentucky with another state.
Yeah.
So maybe 20 Ohio breds is what I've
Now,
got.
a lot of them say it's kind of a backup plan for those dual eligibles, but you do race a number down in Kentucky.
Yeah, I race a fair bit down there, and we had some luck with 2-year-olds down there last year.
How would you compare racing in Kentucky with racing in Ohio as far as the competition?
It's a lot higher competition level down there. There's the top level might not be so different, but as you go down, you might be racing for 15,000 at the Red Mile. And trotting in 53 with a 2-year-old,
Yeah.
So there's really no escaping good horses down there. You can't go to the fairs, you can, but once those are over, there's no escape from the good horses once the Red Mile meet opens.
Yeah. Now, in Ohio, though, you do race a number of horses at the county fairs.
Yeah, sure do. Yeah, it's been part of our program ever since I got started back here again. So.
Do you like racing at the fairs?
I do. Yeah, it's it's good for horses that aren't top level, and it's certainly helped us make 100,000 with a lot of horses that might not have otherwise. So.
And the other thing is, you can't race 28 of them in the sire stake races.
No. There's a few that belong in the sire stakes, and then you have to work the rest through the Buckeye and the fairs.
I don't think I've ever asked anybody this, but I'm going to ask you: is there a major difference between the sire stake horses and the Buckeye Stallion series?
I would say that there's a major difference between the top 2 or 3 sire stake horses and the Buckeye horses. Once you get past the first few horses, then maybe a Buckeye horse would fit in the place of the 4th or 5th best sire stake horse.
So if you're finishing 4th and 5th or not getting a check, you belong in the Buckeye Stallion series.
Well, I hate to say that because the sire stakes needs to thrive too. We need entries in the sire stakes. I think it's best if there's a couple divisions, and even with a mid-level sire stake horse, you have a chance to win.
Yeah.
When we get down to 5 or 6 horses in the sire stakes, that's not really a good thing.
And of course, here in the Buckeye State, the way the purses are nowadays, you can make money in all divisions.
Yeah, that's the good thing. Even a mediocre horse has a chance to make a lot of money here.
Yeah. Now, I see in the 10 that we're featuring today, we do have 2 triumphant caviars, but out of that, we've got Creatine, Enterprise, Muscle Up the Goal, and In Range, Ready for Money, Mission Accepted, and Uncle Peter. Did you spread it out intentionally for this, or do you feel these are some of your top ones?
A little bit of what I included was, out of interest. Mostly it's the horses that have been at the top, and I didn't have as many Triumphant Caviars this year. He has had a very small crop, and I only ended up with 5 Triumphant Caviars this year.
How old is Triumphant Caviar?
I believe he is 18 now.
Yeah.
I believe he's 18.
You have any idea how many mares you bred to him this year?
I don't know, actually. Yeah, I don't know.
But he has been one of the top sires in the state for a number of years.
Yeah, I honestly believe he'd be far and away the best sire we have in this state if he'd had the fertility. But really, that's been the difficult thing for him. They do all right getting mares in full to him at the farm, but the one year we had a big crop. A big book of mares to Triumphant Caviar. He only had 55 live foals that year, so it's been an uphill battle when you don't have the numbers.
You've always had with these offspring. You've always had some good ones too.
Oh yeah. That's been, I never made money off of Triumph and Caviar owning him, but I made a lot of money training his foals. So and I brought in the Centurion ATM, the full brother to Triumph, and so I've been breeding mares to him too, and they've got the same qualities. So hopefully he'll pick up and have larger books once people see what he can do. So.
When you go to the sales, is there anything in particular that you look at the yearlings that the number one thing, that characteristic they have, or that make you want them?
Well, it's usually the pedigree page that I focus on, and then if they've got the pedigree page I like, then I'm looking for a body type in the horse, and I'm looking for a decent video, but that's probably the order that I go in.
You mentioned decent video. That's really caught on in the last few years. It's almost a necessity. But do you go to the farms and check out some horses?
Not too much, no, and it's mainly because I'm too busy,
Oh, really? I didn't realize you did that. I'll tell you, spend a morning with Chris Beaver, you'll see what he's talking about. He's too busy, believe me or not, because it's quite an operation you have here. What's the total size of your stable?
I have 55 this year, close to 32-year-olds, and about 18 or so 3-year-olds. The rest are some aged racehorses. So.
I saw Winning Mister out there on the jog track today.
Winning Ticket.
Winning ticket.
Yes, yeah.
Winning Mister. I'm going back to Bob Key.
Yeah, I remember him. He raced against Triumph and Caviar.
Oh yeah. It's funny when you get old, you throw in those old horses. A lot easier sometimes. How's he training?
Well, he was racing through the winter, and I gave him a 30-day break. So he's just getting started back jogging, but he'll come back and he'll race fine in another month.
Do you keep many older horses?
I have about 10, I would say. Yeah.
Actually, that's a pretty good number for somebody that has that many 2- and 3-year-olds.
Right. I tend to keep horses that I think can race. Either they've got some room to grow with, they don't have a ton of par mutual wins, or they look like they can race at the open level. That's where I don't really enjoy keeping racehorses that have to work their way up and down the ranks. If they're that type, I tend to move them along.
We're looking at 9 trotters today and 1 pacer. How many pacers do you have?
Well, I have 1 3-year-old, and the pacer is actually a trotter right now. So
really,
yeah. That's why I included her. I thought it was interesting. So.
The lather up.
Yes. Yeah.
Something in the breeding, or just?
Her. I knew that her mother had took a mark on the trot. She's a Sun Beach somewhere mare, and she had took a mark on the trot. And I'm inclined to race trotters anyway, so I noticed that she was pretty natural at trotting, so I've just been asking her to do that, and we've trained her in 20 here in the farm, so she'll race on the trot, I believe. So.
And if you don't, then you go fall back on the pace.
We always could. Yeah, it probably wouldn't take long to.
Now you don't talk to Chris Beaver without bringing up trotting hobbles. You still a big proponent of that?
Oh yeah, I use a lot of them. Yeah, especially in Ohio, I've found that's one way to help the drivers out in this state, because they roll here. They're not relaxing at the start or whatever. Yeah. So I like it for insurance. Yeah.
We've had a number of trainers tell us this year that they've had to reduce the size of their stable because it's hard to find employees. Has that have been a problem for the Beaver operation?
Yeah, we're always looking for good employees, but I feel like it's maybe a little less of a problem than it's been the last few years. I know we've been desperate at times to find help, and I haven't I haven't been in that situation, but you know, you're always right on the edge of, you know, one person quits or, you know, gets sick or whatever, and you find yourself in a difficult situation.
Well, Chris, we thank you. I know it's a busy morning. You got to get back to training a few here today, so we thank you for sitting down. And after this message, we'll go through the stalls, and Ashley Daly will talk to Chris Beaver about his Ohio breds in training on Freshman Focus.
Racing is back at El Dorado Scioto Downs. Catch the excitement all summer long. Live racing every Tuesday through Saturday nights. First race post time is 5:45. Mark your calendar to see the future stars with the $150,000 Next Generation on July 5th. Thrilling harness racing at El Dorado Scioto Downs. Horse players can earn points with the Caesars Reward Program. El Dorado Scioto Downs. Live racing is back.
With over 30 years of experience in wealth planning and a lifetime of involvement in harness racing, Matt Franklin at Wire to Wire Wealth can help you build a financial plan that addresses the unique circumstances of those involved in the horse racing industry. Whether you are investing to build wealth, protect your family, or preserve your assets, Matt at Wire to Wire Wealth will work with you through the wealth planning process from start to finish.
Welcome back to Freshman Focus. Thanks for joining us for another episode. Let's go ahead and talk to Chris Beaver about 10 of his Ohio breds. Our first stop is Bug On, a gelding trotter by Creatine out of La Cantera, a Cantab Hall mare. So this one's actually has a little bit of a pedigree behind it. Why don't you give us an insight?
Okay, yeah, this is a full brother to Juju B. I did not have this horse all winter. Chuck Sylvester trained him down, and I've only had him about a week. But he seems like a nice horse, and obviously with his pedigree, I felt obliged to include him. Not really knowing the horse yet, but they tell me he's good. I've seen him train in Florida, and he's trained down around 2.8 at this point. So
quite a bit faster, I will say, than a lot of our other trainers.
Yes, and you know, mine had trained in that range too, some of them, but this was in race bikes. But yeah, it's a lot easier to get them trained down in Florida, that's for sure.
When you do have something coming a little bit later to your stable, do you take the other trainers' advice, keep them rigged the same, or what's your go-to?
Oh, I absolutely take, you know, Chuck Sylvester. I definitely take his advice, and they sent a list of what the horse has been wearing. The thing is, though, when they're coming to this track, I mean, they hate my track in the beginning, you know, and there's always a period of adjustment. My track's got small turns, and you know, we're coming off a big mile track in Florida on clay, and they do it very easy down there. So of course there's going to be a lot of rigging adjustments over the next few weeks on these horses.
Is there something specific you like about him? Gait, his manners?
Well, I loved the horse at the sale on appearance. You know, I looked at him as well, you know, and I trained Scrappy's Love for the same owner as this horse, so we knew all along he was coming our way in the summer, you know. So you know, I've been keeping a little eye on him through the winter, watching him. So.
And there is Bug On, a gelding trotter. Our next stop is Colt Trotter Buckeye Triumphs, a triumphant caviar colt out of California Love by Stormin Norman. Chris, this is a homebred for you.
Somewhat, yeah. I was owner on the horse, and he was raised at Dublin Valley, and we ended up buying him back out of the sale for a lot of money, and you know, pieced him out to some other owners. But you know, we loved the horse. I loved his dam. She was a real nice mare for me, beautiful mare, and this is a really extravagant triumphant caviar. So.
Say, I think you've had some siblings of his in the past, maybe the Buckeye Hill?
Yes,
handful
yeah,
of
they're
years
different.
ago?
Yeah, different sire. It was a What the Hill, and you know, he did race in the sire stakes some, but he never really panned out for me.
Now, how is he comparing then to the Buckeye?
Well, this horse has, you know, what the mare herself and the offspring that I had so far were not real ambitious. They didn't have a lot of desire, and he's quite different. He wants to go. You know, he really wants to do it, and
Now,
he's big and he covers a lot of ground.
I was going to say he is a pretty big colt. When you're taking a look at the sales, whether it's, you know, even your own homebreds, what are you really eyeing for?
Well, I always look for pedigree, crosses, the way the mare crosses to the sire, and you know, after that I'm looking for a good body on the horse. You know, conformation, I accept a lot of flaws in conformation, but I do need to see a good body on the horse.
And there is Buckeye Triumphs. Our first filly trotter is Capture the Photo by Uncle Peter out of Broadway Photo, a Broadway Hall mare. This is a $17,000 purchase out of the Buckeye. So what do you think about her?
So one thing that really drew me to her was the cross. You know, she's out of a Broadway Hall mare, and I believe it's a cross that worked really well with a sister to her. You know, and so that's what drew me to her in the first place, and she videoed really good, and you know, this has been a nice horse. Really, always trains good.
Now, do you break all of your 2-year-olds yourself? Do you farm them out?
I have farmed out some in the past, but you know, the last few years I've done them all. You know, just for the sake of getting them done quickly. We tend to break them pretty quick and have it over and done with, and we can get started doing real work with them. You know, so I just found that the whole system goes a lot faster if we do it ourselves.
How was she at the start?
She was, you know, a little bit anxious, but nothing terribly remarkable about her breaking.
Do you have any equipment changes on her so far?
No, she's been very easy to train to this point. So.
And is she going right with the colts right now? Again, this is early May, so we won't air this for a little while.
Yeah,
but.
You know, I've had the colts, fillies. It doesn't really matter. I've had some about half of my horses trained between 8 and 9 in the bike, and the other half have been like 14 to 15 in the jog cart. And it just mattered if something happened along the way a little bit. Like she maybe got sick for a week, you know. So she trained in 14 in the jog cart before we left Florida. So.
There is Capture the Photo, filly trotter. Next, we're stopping by another filly, Kira, by Enterprise out of Kikimora, a Triumphant Caviar mare. Now, Chris, you again have some history with this family. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, this is a foal out of Kikimora, and I trained her at 2, 3, and 4, and she won the Sire Stakes final as a 2-year-old, and just a real nice Triumphant Caviar mare, and I'm happy to train a foal out of her. And I have the dam as well now, and we continue to train some out of that mare. So.
I was going to say, you can't overlook her dam. She made not quite $500,000, but quite a bit of money in her lifetime. Are there any characteristics that you see coming out in her foal?
Well, this filly is, well, I would say about Kikimora, she was probably as natural Triumphant Caviar as I ever trained. They aren't particularly natural horses, but she was really natural. This filly is even a next level above that as far as being clean gaited and quick, you know, very, very natural filly. Enterprise is not my favorite sire, but I have loved this filly all along.
So what has her gait been like then on the track?
She's very quick and very clean. You know, that's all I can say about it.
Yeah,
really.
pretty simple then.
Yes.
Yeah. Now she trotting hobbles. What is boots?
No,
What's she wearing?
No trotting hobbles. Everything wears boots in my barn, but no, she really doesn't have any interference issues at this point. So.
Do you stake all of your trotters to the Ohio Sire Stake, or what will her season look like?
If I didn't stake them to the sire stakes, I've quit with them by now. So, you know, there aren't any I don't stake to the sire stakes. So.
And there is Kiera, a filly trotter. Okay, one more is a Triumphant Caviar gelding trotter out of Centerfold Lady, a credit winner mare. Why don't you tell us about this Triumphant Caviar?
So what really attracted me to this horse was the cross. It's been an extremely potent cross, credit winner mares with Triumphant Caviar. And you know, the pedigree's pretty decent anyway, but this horse is such a typical Triumphant. He was hard to get gaited. He's still not the cleanest gaited horse, but he does it. And I know those type, you know, they always turn out to be good horses. If they overcome, you know, they touch here, they touch there, but they keep going, and they're always progressing forward, and they always make good horses.
How was a transition for them, you know, coming up from Florida? How has his mind been?
Not too bad, not too bad. They all struggle, you know. I've only had everything up here for about a week. They've got one training on my farm track at this point, and you know, half of them run out here, and they, you know, horses that never made a break the whole winter will make breaks out here training. This horse hasn't done bad, actually. He's settled in pretty decent, and you know, and his next training trip will be up at the fairgrounds, and it'll be a lot easier for him.
I was going to bring that up. So when do you start to make that move into the fairgrounds and start hauling, and how often?
Well, usually if I'm going to train them, in 210 or better, I'm going up there with my 2-year-olds, and you know, this horse has been in 8 and change at Spring Garden, so next time I train him there, he'll go back around there probably.
Do they come pretty naturally when you take them to the Delaware County Fair, just because of the turns? You know, the shape of the track is a little bit different.
The first time up there, even when I used to train here at the farm all winter, they weren't quite right the first time there, but it is going to still be an easier transition than the first time training on this track. So I expect they'll train pretty good, you know.
There is one more gelding trotter. Our next stop is filly trotter Speed Be With You by Mission Accepted out of Instinct, a Father Patrick mare. This is another homebred, and actually the first foal for this mare.
Yeah, you know, I don't know the family really well. It was sent to me by some owners, and you know, she's been a real nice horse to train all winter long. Very natural, very clean.
And so I'm assuming you broke her out then?
Yeah, well, no, they had broke her before they sent her to us, so maybe she'd had a couple weeks of jogging when she came over to our farm.
What are her mannerisms on the track?
She's very interested in doing her work, and quick, clean, you know, and been a very easy horse to train all year.
Now, will you show your 2-year-olds the gate before the Delaware qualifiers? Do you have one come out here on the farm track?
Most of them have been on a gate in Florida. They have it running out there a couple times a week. So periodically we'd put them on it. So it's not too big an issue for me. Plus we always break them on our equisizer when they're babies, so they've seen that type of gait too.
And that's something that you do have right here on the farm. I was going to ask if you put your 2-year-olds on it pretty quick.
Oh yeah, well the yearlings, when I break them, they go out there. Now we don't use it too much for regular work, unless I've got an aggressive horse that is tough on us on the racetrack. But you know, really the main time they get on it is when we're breaking them.
And what has she been trained down in?
She trained in 14 in the jog cart before she left.
When you're taking your 2-year-olds out, do you like to group them fillies and fillies, colts and colts, or does it matter just how fast?
No, it doesn't matter to me. We put them together.
There is Speed Be With You, filly trotter. Our next stop is filly trotter Faster Horses by Muscle Up the Goal out of Fantasia Flurry, a Swan for All mare. Why don't you tell us about this filly?
So this was a homebred for me. I trained Muscle Up the Goal, and I've got I believe I've got 5 of them this year, I guess, and they're all training pretty good. But you know, I like this one the best, I think, right now of the 5 of them. So I put her in here. She's they're natural horses, and she was natural, you know, training down. And this filly's got a really good body on her. She gets from her mother too. So yeah, this is one I've been happy with.
You've talked about conformation and body. We've heard our last handful of freshman focus trainers talk about length in a trotter. Is that something you're also focusing on?
Oh yeah, length is nice, you know, but you know, it seems even when they've got a lot of length, they still, a lot of them interfere even with the length. So, you know, what I do if I think a horse is short couple, then I look at how they travel, you know, in the video, and try to decide if I want to take the risk or not. So
I've noticed all of our 2-year-olds we've stopped by so far have been pretty cool, calm, and collected. Do you have any weird quirks on the track with her or anything?
No, she's actually really good on the track. My first crop of Muscle Up the Golds last year, they got hot, and they had gotten hot early training. This group has been different. They're really pretty collected horses, and he was himself, you know. He was a really talented and good-mannered 2-year-old. He won his first 3 races by about 20 lengths as a 2-year-old, but he ended up bowing. So I just felt the horse was a real natural, fast horse, and that's why we bred mares to him.
And there is Faster Horses Filly Trotter. Water Slide is a gelding trotter by Ready for Money out of Above the Clouds, an explosive matter mare. How are you feeling about the Ready for Money so far?
They're training okay. They've got great bodies on them, great gaits. They just they're kind of headstrong. They throw their heads, and you know, I had to geld all my Ready for Money colts. They were just too much of a handful. This guy, he can be a little aggressive too, but he's really good gaited, and I thought he was the best of my Ready for Moneys at this point, so I included him.
When it comes to an aggressive horse, what is that fine line of you want one that wants to win, that wants to race, but you also got to be able to control them?
Right. Well, it's hard to tell, you know, I've had some horses that were just absolutely too aggressive, but they were still good horses, you know. And then you get others that they just seem to wear themselves out and take too much out of themselves. So, you know, obviously you want your horse to be calm and relaxed and, you know, not aggressive in the hole. But, you know, the aggressive horses usually end up in a position where they can make money if they have the talent. So.
Is there any kind of equipment changes that you've done in the past, or even specifically with him, that it can help those?
Well, we
manners?
you know, we tend to open these aggressive horses up. You know, go to open bridles. You know, I mean, I have one that I've had to put a Crit Davis on. You know, it's, you know, you try not to be too harsh with them, but sometimes it's required.
There is Water Slide, gelding trotter. Our next filly trotter is Range the Wish by In Range out of I Am Spike's Wish, a Cadabra mare. It was an $18,000 purchase from the Buckeye Classic.
Yeah, I liked this filly because you know, I liked the gaits on the In Ranges. They were very clean and natural, but I saw that so many of them looked like they were ready to drop in the box. You know, they were too fit already. I like to see a little more bulk on a horse, some body to work with, you know, and they were too slim. But this filly was out of a Cadabra mare, and I think that put the body into her, you know, that I was looking for.
Say, it looks like she's got a little bit of frosting in one of her eyes. It's closest to you.
Yes.
Tell me about that and how it's affected, if it has affected anything.
Well, you know, this was in her eye when I bought her, and they had done an exam on her and said that she can see out of it just fine. It's not an issue. So, and it hasn't been any kind of issue to this point.
When it comes to her gait, how's it on the track?
Great. She covers a lot of ground. She's quick. You know, I've probably spent more money staking this filly than anything else. There's a 2-year-old right now. So.
Looks like she has a half sibling that's made almost $700,000 in its lifetime. When you're looking at pedigree, how much emphasis do you?
Oh, I'm looking for a minimum $500,000 winner in the first 3 generations. You know, that's something we look for. But you know, even better is when it's up front. You know, under the first dam.
And there is Range the Wish filly trotter. Our last stop is maybe one that we don't expect out of the Beaver stable. This is bred to be a filly pacer, Hush Don't Tell, by Lather Up out of Sneakert, Hanover, a Some Beach Somewhere mare. Chris, tell us about her.
So I bought the mare carrying this filly. She was a Some Beach Somewhere, but she had a mark on the trot. And I bred her to breed to a trotter. Or bought her to breed to a trotter. She had this filly, and this filly showed a natural tendency to trot, so I never tried to make her do anything else. And she's trained right on down here. She stayed right here at the farm all winter and trained down to 220 out here in the jog cart already. So she's ready to go in the bike and, you know, go right with the ones I had in Florida. And you know, I figure, you know, if she trots well, then, you know, I'll probably breed her to a trotter someday, you know.
Do you ever purchase some of these fillies, you know, 2, 3, whatever it may be, in hopes that you'll eventually have a broodmare one day?
Oh yeah, I'm always buying horses I hope will make, you know, when I'm buying fillies, I always look at their broodmare potential when I buy them. And, you know, I've been wanting to breed some pacing mares to trotters for some time, and I figure one that has an inclination to trot is better suited.
Do you have a pair of hobbles on her to help her?
I didn't for a long time, but I do now. But you know, that's 80% of my 2-year-old trotters right now. So.
Have you had to break any bad habits from her when it comes to going on the track that maybe you're not seeing with other trotters?
No, not really. She's a little quieter than the average trotting filly. You know, she has a tendency to be a little lazier. You know, that would be the only thing I would say. But the gait is natural.
And there is Hush Don't Tell filly pacer. Chris, that wraps us up for our 10 Ohio breds. Thanks for letting us hang out for the afternoon.
Yep, thank you. Yep.
Well, that wraps up another edition of Freshman Focus. Hope you enjoyed our visit with Chris Beaver. I'd like to thank Chris and all of his employees for making our job real easy today for Freshman Focus. Join us again next week, same time, same location for Freshman Focus.
This has been Freshman Focus, a look at 2-year-olds in training across the Buckeye State. Freshman Focus is presented by Eldorado Scioto Downs. Racing begins May 8th with the next generation July 5th. By Sugar Valley Farm. Looking for your next quality standardbred racehorse? Look no further than Sugar Valley Farm in Delaware, Ohio. By Prolific Equine, managing stallions and mares to create champions. By the Ohio State Veterinary Medical Center, caring down to a science. And by Wire to Wire Wealth, strategies tailored to your needs. Freshman Focus is a production of the Ohio Harness Horsemen's Association.